Well, the question, how is the achievement gap evident in school today? It's evident in a lot of different ways. The one that people are most familiar with is through standardized testing, which in and of themselves are somewhat biased to begin with. And many argue that aren't really accurate pictures of what students know, but it's one piece of data. The U.S. Department of Education has a Civil Rights Division, and every 2 to 3 years they produce a civil rights report to look at the achievement gap issues in many different areas. One area that we're very familiar with is through disproportionality with student discipline. We look at it by gender, we look at it by race, by socioeconomic status. The achievement gap is also manifested in course offerings. The last U.S. Department of Civil Rights report revealed that schools that have a majority African American or Latino population, either or, in most of them, the highest math course is Algebra 2. The highest science offering is biology. So just issues of equity and access. And I can be a very academically capable student, but if the math continuum stops at Algebra 2, I never get trig, I never get calculus, that's built-in bias right into my school structure. There's a lot of different ways that we measure that, and the sad reality is that we can predict it, typically based upon how much money parents earn and what the kids look like. The liberation mindset are a set of observable beliefs and characteristics that I've been able to put together in a framework from schools that I've worked with who've been effective at closing the achievement gap. And there are 3 common characteristics that they have. Number 1, there's an intense reinforcement of the belief in equality, that they don't start to place their students on a hierarchy based upon their own personal bias. That if we expect every 3rd grader to be able to read at this level, all means all. That we don't say, well, these are the 3rd grade standards for the good kids, 3rd grade standards for the bad kids, 3rd grade standards for kids who have one parent in the home. That equality means equality. That what we expect of one, the bar of expectation is the same for all. The second area is in the area of responsibility. The schools that I've observed and worked with who've been effective at closing the achievement gap don't place the responsibility for changing conditions on other people. They spend a lot of time analyzing their own efficacy. What can we do for the students? Not identifying what gaps kids have to place blame on other people. They think about what is our responsibility to the student. What can we do in our own environment with our own resources to close those gaps? But the second phase of responsibility is that they're really, really serious about engaging their students and parents and their community in the process. That we can't do this by ourselves, that we have to all take responsibility, and we'll model it for you. But we expect parents to step to the plate. We expect students. Whenever there's high expectations, then people tend to improve. The third area is in the area of advocacy, that these folks just aren't on a mission to do everything by themselves. So they get active with local civic organizations, lobbying at the state level, lobbying at the national level, not just when funding that affects them personally is at risk, but making sure that their kids get a fair opportunity to compete in a very competitive, in a growing, even a more competitive workplace than what we had even 10 years ago. Well, in my book, Overcoming the Achievement Gap Trap, there's a lot of self-reflective tools. Included in it is a rubric that looks at the components of the liberation mindset, so schools can ask, do we have discriminatory grading practices? Do we have a master schedule of course offerings that limit certain access for certain students? They can do a self-analysis. Then there's a survey that every teacher can take. So there's a set of questions designed that have been field tested on thousands of teachers so that teachers can take a look at how does my own practice and my own belief systems affect student learning. So in the book, the last 2 chapters are are built around how does a teacher in a school assess where they are on the continuum. 3 takeaways I'd like for participants to leave with. Number 1 is that we are the most important agents in the student's development. That student achievement should not be a manifestation of assets or skills developed before kids get to school. Number two, that the achievement gap is functional for many people, that we have to get beyond the rhetoric of equality and really start to call people out. Like whom? School boards, state and federal agencies, principals, teachers, parents, that the achievement gap has been functional for a long time for a lot of people. So what I ask the teachers today is that if we're not going to start to work to bring about the equality that our mission statements talk about, let's just stop saying it. If we like inequality and we like some communities poor, other communities wealthy, some kids with an advantage, some kids at a disadvantage, then let's stop fooling ourselves and parading around like we're these ethical people who want all people to have an opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If we're not going to work towards it, then just stop saying it. And the third takeaway is that research has taught us, particularly the research of John Hattie and Bob Marzano, on what good schools do from a practice standpoint to close the achievement gap and raise achievement. It's not a mystery. We know exactly what those things are. Teachers working collaboratively to identify clearly what we want students to learn, creating a comprehensive assessment system to gather that evidence, creating a differentiated system of intervention to help kids where they are, and providing enrichment for those who've hit that target and are ready to move forward. It's not a mystery. We know how to do it. But many schools make a lot of excuses about why they can't do it, why other people are responsible, that we have the tools at our disposal now more than we ever have to move every child forward.